Dedicated reefers are relatively easy to spot. They are the ones that usually set up a tank in their new home before moving anything else in. This is one of the reasons why my episode uploads haven't been as regular as I wish they were. But with moving, working, setting up a new tank, breaking another tank down, editing these videos, and running back and forth between homes doing water changes and feeding the fish and corals, I hope you understand the delay. After vacuuming and cleaning, the next thing I'm going to do is install the overflow. Now, a lot of people say don't caulk your overflow in place, but I'm going to this time. I did last time and I hadn't had one single leak, so I'm going to do that with this overflow. So just take your silicone. What I do is I just try to lay down the nicest bead of caulk that I can all the way around. And then put that in place as carefully as possible. And then push down. And you're going to see the caulk actually spreads out from the overflow. And then when you have your overflow in place, what I do, I just screw it on real quick. And then make sure it's in place, push down, crank again, and you're gonna see that the caulk actually spreads out. Now that's a really good thing, because now I'm actually gonna put more caulk around the edge, like so. Now it's always a good idea to have paper towels handy, because what I'm going to do is just kind of smear this in the crack between the overflow and the glass to make a nice solid seal. Sorry, the lighting's not better, everyone. I'm just moving in, so I don't have everything moved over quite yet, but in the next few days I will. So I'm just making sure that the caulk is in the seam between the glass and the overflow. Now, it's really important to do this in a very well ventilated area, and if you can't, just try to. And that is now going to be a part of the aquarium. And now that the overflow is caulked and drying, I'm going to work on the return. And I'm going to screw this down just enough so there's a little bit of play, so I can grab my other plumbing and start plumbing the tank. So the next thing I have to do is run some Cat 5 from this location where the router is going to be underneath the carpet into the tank. So what I use is this, it's called a fishing tape. It's commonly used in electrical or AV pulling wire. And what it is, very thin piece of metal. And so I just ran that underneath the carpet all the way to the other side. And now it's sticking out of the carpet. I just used some electrical tape to make sure the tank goes back in the same place as it was. So now I just have to grab my Cat 5, tape it on the end of this, and then pull that all the way back. And now the Cat 5 cable is now installed. And it comes to the back of the tank over here. And the next thing I did is I bought a 90-degree extension cord. So now I can push the tank all the way back. And this 90 will fit perfectly with this 90, as I'll show you in a second. And now with the tank slid back into place, as you can see, the bottom of the cabinet is actually touching the trim. That's why I drilled these holes, so the cable can actually come through. So when I put the fascia on, so it doesn't bow out the fascia. And the next thing I have done is I've just used some old speaker wire and knotted it on the end and actually threaded it through both holes. So when this thing is pushed up against the wall, all I have to do is tape on the light cord here and pretty much just fish it down the wall by pulling this cable. And I did that on all 3 holes. And right now I'm just continuing the plumbing for the return pump. And I'll show you every single one of these threaded connections. I'm using Teflon tape. And it's really easy to put on. This is how it's going to be mounted. This is the thread pattern. So make sure to put your thread pattern on like this instead of this way, because when you screw it on, it'll actually take the Teflon tape off because you're screwing it in the reverse direction. So make sure you're putting it on the right way. Just like so. And now this piece is ready. And I also found this old inner tube I had lying around since 2012. So I'm pretty sure this is not good anymore. So what I want to do is open this up. Yeah, as you can see, this thing is not good for a bicycle inner tube anymore. I think it's cracking anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a nice flat section like this one right here. And I'm going to cut it like so. And I am going to use this to wrap around both the return and the exit tubes. So when I put the mount on, this will absorb some of the vibration. So I'll just cut it right down the middle again. And I'm going to install that right there and right there. Everything tightened down, there's going to be no more rattles out of that. So here's a quick status update. As you can see, the tank's filled up with water, and I just haven't had enough to fill up the sump yet. So once I get about 10 more gallons, I think I'm going to start putting salt in here and mixing it up with the MP40 I installed in the corner. I've added this temporary heater. It's just going to be in here while I mix water. And I'm also going to temporarily put in this Model 2. It's a Danner pump. It's an old Danner pump. Works really well. They're pretty cheap actually too. So just a temporary return pump with a hose. It's going to go right into the tank. So what I've done here is just use a clamp with a card in the middle so I don't damage the exterior of the aquarium. And now both the return pump and the MP40 are plugged in. So the next thing I did is I turned the heater all the way down as far as it'll go. And now I'm going to plug that in because the tank is super cold right now. And if I turn that heater all the way up to 78, 79 degrees, I'm pretty sure that glass heater is going to shatter in a bunch of different pieces in the tank, and I don't want that. So I turn it all the way down. And now I'm going to plug that in as well. And now I'll just wait for this for about 4 hours, and then I'm going to start putting salt in the tank. So I made a quick storage trip. I've had these light tubes in my possession probably 5 or 6 years, and they're just 5 feet EMT that I actually bent a 90 in. And I've drilled some holes in the top for a previous project, which was a frag tank. And I've drilled some holes on the side. Now one, I've already run the cable through and just use some white electrical tape for now. These are just temporary so I can get some light on the tank. And out of the bottom of the pipe, I just have these cables that come through. So what I did is I just cut, these are called D plugs, and I just cut one in half and use this end to plug into the light. And I've just used this speaker wire as an extension for now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape this end to this end and pull the cables through the cabinet. And there's the end. So now I'll just stuff these down the hole and just make sure the light pole goes through both holes, like so. And so now I just have to splice these wires together. And so now I've just temporarily mounted the light, and I'll move the light into place. Sort of place it where I want it temporarily. This is all temporary until I get my radions. And then we'll plug it in and see if that works. And we have light. So when I originally set this up, I did some calculations, some rough calculations, and I thought I had around 58 gallons. So I kind of equated that to be 54 scoops. And the craziest thing, and you guys are probably not gonna believe me, but just trust me on this one, I put exactly 54 scoops in here, and I just tested with my refractometer, and guess what? It's an absolute perfect 0.026. So I just got back from the other tank and I did a water change, and I filled up 2 buckets full of the old water, all of the nasty old water, and I also brought back some live rock from the other tank. So what I'm gonna do is drain about 8 gallons out of this tank and add all this nasty water and live rock in this tank. And so now with the live rock in place and the sump levels looking good and the temperature pretty much right on the mark, which is like 78, 79 degrees, I'm going to leave this for about a week to a week and a half to cycle the tank. As you can see, there's lots of detritus and who knows whatever else is floating around in there after a water change. So like I said, I'm going to wait about a week to a week and a half, let this cycle, and then come back and see how it plans out. Those pallies have only been in the tank maybe 5 minutes and they're already starting to open up, so that's always a good sign. So I'll catch you guys next week. Honey, I'm home. I've got the union. Where's my dinner? Honey? Why is the floor wet and the lights off?